already is DBD Leaks leaked the anniversary poster for the 6th year. A lot of people think that this 6th-year anniversary logo looks like a Candyman hook or a Foxy hook, or like even there's this image of Alien that kind of looks like that 6 or the shape of the 6. I don't think that we can discount the fact that DBD Leaks posted on Twitter that it's going to be an original chapter. For me, I'm not going to use this logo for any evidence of speculations. We know that the 4-year anniversary logo is shaped like Pyramid Head, so that kind of teased the 4-year anniversary killer. For the 5-year anniversary logo, Behavior knew that we were going to analyze the shape of the 5 in that poster, so they actually trolled us. They made that 5-year anniversary logo the perfect shape of the witch's hook, and then it turned out to be Nemesis as the killer, so I don't think I'm going to use this logo as any basis for speculations. I think that Behavior can make this logo look like whatever they want, so they can just throw us in any direction they'd like, so I'm not going to use it. We have way more better information here. If they weren't expecting this to get leaked, pretty much the order of things would have been they release this logo, they don't release the killer, and then everybody starts making speculations based off the logo, and then I don't think we'd get anywhere with that. One of my data mining friends, Mr. X, said that this logo looks like it could be the Babadook director's signature. Her name's Jennifer Kent, and the Anniversary 6 kind of looks like a backwards J. So take all that information how you will. I'm actually not going to use that as a basis for any speculations. People are also talking about the fact that the Observer is missing, and there's footsteps of the Observer kind of leaving the room that he once was in Dead by Daylight. It could be revealed later that he's going into the tomes or going into the archives, grabbing some people out of the DBD lore and bringing them into the game. Who knows what that's going to be? I'm actually not going to talk about that too much either. The main thing I wanted to focus on in this video is this compelling story from an ex-Behavior employee. So pretty much after I posted my chapter 24 new killer debate video, an ex-Behavior employee contacted me to tell me that one of the leaks was fake. It was the ex-employee that was linked in these messages. I don't know if I should black out their names or not, but pretty much this person contacted me and said, hey, this is not true, and the fact that you posted about this as if it were true, you're no better than the people that posted these fake messages. I wasn't sure how to react to this. The reason that I posted this as like a speculation or a basis for a theory is because there's actually information in the messages that hadn't been public information at the time. That led me to believe that whoever wrote the messages actually had an inside source or had inside information before it was supposed to be known. These messages came before DBD Leaks posted about the killer power being locker based. So to me, I was like, hey, this person knows that the new killer's power is going to be locker based, and that was before DBD Leaks posted this to make it public information. I never really questioned the depth that they linked in the messages, and to me it was kind of valid because they had information that wasn't out there already, and I focused on the fact that they talked about an original Babadook killer. Those two pieces were the most important information for me. So I had this ex-Behavior employee say, hey, this is kind of a hoax and you shouldn't have posted that, you shouldn't present it as a fact. In my defense, this is kind of the niche of my channel, is finding information that's discovered by the community and interpreting it. Sometimes the news that I receive turns out to be fake, in which case I like to clarify what I think is the truth in future videos like this one. The ex-Behavior employee wanted me to confirm that these messages are fake, and I actually can't really confirm that they're fully fake. Like, to me, at least the first part of that information is true. I can't really confirm that that's the actual employee that leaked the information. Am I in the wrong for not reaching out to this ex-Behavior employee and confirming that the story was true? Honestly, to me, this seems like a he said, she said kind of situation, and either party I reach out to would claim that what they're saying is true. If a Behavior employee was ever to leak any information and I were to reach out to them and ask if they leaked the information, they would definitely deny it. Going against NDA, which is the non-disclosure agreement, can actually result in a lawsuit. And this ex-employee kind of presented to me a pretty compelling story about how it couldn't have possibly been them. They told me that they actually left Behavior before they even started working on this chapter, so it literally could not have been them. They also said that they had nothing to do with the artist leak. We know that around the time of the artist, it was rumored that the next 3 or 4 killers was leaked. They said they had nothing to do with that, so that's kind of their side of the story, and I wanted to present that in this video.
I'm gonna be real with you. Because they believe of last light within this small tutorial area. It looks fine. At first I'm thinking real, the music matches up nicely, epic strings, environmental sounds, flames and screams. It enhances the situation without distracting. This so far is the opposite of Fiesta, which is a good thing. Hand in the quest finally and go activate some defense turrets. Just run up to and click them. Level up while fighting. Now, despite leveling up early, the level up tutorial actually happens later on or so. Slight pacing issue there. And also the reason the combat is taking so long right now. You'll see more of that issue later too. Oh, sweet. Look at that giant twisted abomination. A huge two-headed giant. I want to kill that. So I attack it, and it ignores me and attacks an unkillable human NPC. Brilliant! I can take this down. Just gotta leave this running for a bit and go grab a drink. Big dude down, back to the defense consoles. I love how this enemy is just stabbing at them. It's not even on, dude. Just run away, and he's all die, turret. I admire his drive. Run further on, attack an enemy that's way too tough for me, and so run up to these guards for help. And to the game's credit, they do help me, so the early area NPC AI isn't bad. Next few quests need me to go and gather source stones, which are dropped by enemies, and every single fight with an enemy almost kills me. Like, I am taken one hit from death in every fight. Either this is meant to happen, or I'm somehow really underpowered. I'm not sure which, but this definitely feels slow. I do manage to kill 5 eventually, because when you're not in combat, your HP refills quite quickly. The enemy design so far is lovely. I mean, look at this forgotten war machine. It's metal plate armor held together by pulsating red energy, and I love how its bladed fist just spins around, because it can. They don't need to animate that, but they did, and I noticed. The sounds are also terrific. The scraping
You
and
there,
clanging
soldier!
of metal when
Satyrs!
fighting this is so pronounced. Pushing forward
You
and getting
saved
little
my-
past
just
your
go down
enemies,
the road, you-
light
That
within
horse
this
is too
tutorial area. It looks fine. At first I'm thinking, wow, looks like that's a cheap knockoff of the FF14 Aetherite Crystal Teleportation Network. But then I remember, no, this came first. So Final Fantasy XIV, you have some explaining to do. Hand in all
Hello, I
quests,
am
and
Ace,
now I need to
guard
go and
captain
kill
for this small
hulking
village.
The waters
phantasms,
within
which
these
means
fountains
more
are blessed by
combat.
the...
So far I'm thinking, nice design, dull game. The movement is responsive
Hello,
and
stranger.
smooth. The UI
I'm
is
dying. We
really
barely have men
consistent.
enough to
The
keep
audio
the...
design is spot on. Background music
I
sounds
can
appropriate,
ease your
sound effects
load.
well placed. Even the character menu looks fine. And the weapon designs match the world
Hermes
aesthetic, and
guide
the enemies look cool. I mean, look at these chains on the enemy.
Monsters!
Something just
It was
feels
so off.
about the whole experience. Something I
These
can't
shrines,
place
a very
yet.
few
I'll try
still.
and explain it later, but I'm aware right now something just doesn't sit right. I almost die killing every one of these phantasms, but in a nice touch, on the quest that I need to use an item, the item appears in the quest list on the right hand side for ease of access. This is a quality of life upgrade, and I really like this. Plus, the quest object I'm using kills enemies in one hit, so I would like more of these, please and thank you. I restart this machine to fight Frederick, and I don't do well. 2 issues here. First of all, Frederick is not now and never has been a scary name. Your villains won't strike fear into the hearts of mortal men if their nickname is Fred. And 2, how am I meant to win this? I'm equipped with the best stuff I've been given so far and have got what few boosts I've found active, and I'm still dying. So when you die, you can soul walk, which basically puts you right back where you are, and then you just respawn where you decide to wait for 60 seconds. But you can only do that once an hour unless you pay for more. You can always resurrect at a nearby shrine, but every time you die, you'll lose vitality, around 20%, and when your vitality reaches 0, you'll lose some hit points permanently until you go to a healer and pay your vitality debt. I feel this is one of those ideas that sounded great in the design phase, but just adds unnecessary journey time for the player to keep walking back to a healer. Complex to play doesn't always mean fun to play. I'm wondering if this opening area is actually balanced around teams, with several new players all grouping up at the start, but I don't have that luxury, so I return to the buff box from the camp, buff up, and go and take on old Freddy boy again. Oh great, you have to watch his battle speech fully every time you summon him. And oh good, I die again. Maybe I need to grind. Grind to beat the tutorial. Well, okay then. I mean, I'm not having fun. But there's still something misplaced here, some deep feeling that this game just isn't right. Also, I've noticed now that I've been recording with the bottom of the screen
You're
cut
going
off,
out there,
so
don't
I've
go
fixed that for
unprepared.
the rest of the video.
It's not safe.
See, I'm a
Buy what you need
professional
here.
YouTuber. There's no other quests here, and
We
grinding
shall
would
see
take
you
an
again, I
age.
hope.
I mean, I meet a new player and ask if they want to team up, but they're off to bed, so I'm just still soloing this. Let's keep taking on Fred until I win, and, the quest is done? It's finished. What? I didn't... How? Did somebody else do it? Did Fred just give up? I don't know how this happened, but my quest list now just says, go across the bridge and talk to the faceless man. Okay. This dude needs me to take this soul-reclaiming device and go and get Shyla the Fallen's soul, but I need to subdue, meaning
At harvest
kill her
time, the
first.
whole
so
village
I go
sets
and give it a
to
go,
work.
and
What drives
okay,
these
it's going
creatures to-
good. Halfway there. Oh, she then creates a shield and spawns some ads, and how am I meant to win this fight? I can't do that much damage that quickly. Then my prayers are answered. And some of you Rift fans are probably thinking, oh god, finally he found the abilities page that the game doesn't tell you about. He's going to actually use his fighter abilities. Nope, I found a shop. And it sells potions. Gonna tank my way through this. Oh, yes. And hang on. Wait, what's that? The shop sells Mudder's Milk, which for anyone unsure is a reference to the greatest sci-fi TV show ever made. After finding a hidden Firefly reference, I am much more on board with Rift. I stock up on HP pots and go and take on Shyla again, wait for my health to drop low and pot up. Oh, there's a 3-minute cooldown on using potions again. I didn't know that. If I'd have known that, I would have waited till later to use it to maximise the effectiveness. But oh well, let's try. I take her down, use the soul machine and go back to finish the quest. You need to jam her soul into the machine and fight it again. So after Soul Battle 2, Electric Boogaloo, I'm told to get some anima essence from Soul Cores. Basically, every tutorial quest is go and kill X to get Y, and then move on. You can tell if you're going to win a fight within a few seconds by how much your health goes down and how much the enemy's health goes down. This cannot be how the game works, so I run away and I check the menus, the skills, and abilities. Wait, what? There's an abilities menu? Which shows all my attacks and stuff. You see, I didn't find this because opening the character menu shows you a menu called Skills, but that only lists crafting and gathering and general life stuff. To me, combat attacks would also come under Skills, but not in Rift. They're under Abilities. There's no tutorial explaining this though. Now, as a warrior, some of my abilities are shown by 3 little swords under my HP bar, and then some other abilities spend it. The game even has the abilities labelled as Builder or Spender, which is nice, and oh god, this is so much faster now. I know what we're doing now. Now we're in business. Few more quests go down and now we're marching up a hill with Liberty Prime. This giant mech has an AoE punch that just scatters enemies, so it's quite fun to fight alongside it. And at the top of the hill we fight our first Rift, the namesake and main unique mechanic of the game at the time. Nowadays, the Elder Scrolls Online might have its Daedric Dolmens and Skychains, but Rift was doing this way back in 2011. When a rift opens up, the floor goes black, tentacles sprout up, and a tear happens in reality which floods monsters into our world. You have to kill enough of them to close the rift. You've got this counter on the right-hand side showing relating to which stage of the rift I'm at, and then the bag icon on the bottom showing the reward which I can click when I kill the rift. Taking down the rift takes a few minutes, and then we meet the big bad guy, the one everyone is afraid of, Regulos. Kind of like Fred. Fantasy names are meant to be scary, and Regulos just sounds like the sci-fi version of the word regular. You might as well call your name Generica if you're going to call your bad guy Regulos. But Regulos, stupid sounding as he is super powerful, so we complete our ascended destiny and run through the time machine to the past. The whole plot of this game now is we need to stop Regulos in the past to prevent this future. So now we're in the past, and the landscape looks nicer. There's fewer tentacles, but we can still see an open rift in the distance in the skybox. That's actually really cool. Chat to this NPC, ask a question, and then we get, quite oddly, a rather well done tutorial video. I don't mind this. It's pretty concise, it uses visual examples, and it has a fine voiceover, yeah. Explain more systems like this if we ask about them. This video is explaining the Soul Tree, and this system means there's a massive amount of variation within Rift's character building. Every time you level up, you get a few points, and when you put points into the leaves of a Soul Tree, that's the passive skills at the top, you get better, and the more points you put into a certain tree, the more activated abilities you unlock. That's the roots of the tree at the bottom. You can then mix and match which tree you advance, and mix and match the abilities you put onto your hotbar. So you can have 70% tank tree and 30% damage if you like. It's actually very freeform. I do something unusual now. I ignore the quests and go and take down the rift because I want to. See this right here? This is what games mean when they say you can do whatever you want. Many open world MMOs claim you can do whatever you want, but don't actually give the player anything specifically to do. Rift has let me ignore the quest and go and kill a rift because it looks cool and I wanted to do this. This is decent open world freedom. This dude also teams up with me, so thank you, whoever you were. Rift down, wander around town, and go and do some quests. The Portal Master gives me the recall ability, which makes sense, and in this room a sciencey lady needs a message from the future I've brought with me. Look at this glass distilling plate. This giant orb. It reflects and refracts the light through it in real time. You can see the reflection. That's brilliant. They didn't need to do that. They could have just made a translucent glass orb. This isn't even an item you can interact with. This is set dressing. And they made glass light interaction. Small touches that show a high level of craftsmanship. And with this noticed again, the feeling creeps back. What is wrong with Rift? There is something. I know it's there, but I can't quite put it into words yet. Check out the world map. It's sizable, with each region divided into level recommendations. Now, level scaling does exist, but only downwards. So you can out-level a zone, then return and play with your mates as the correct fair level. But you still have harder zones to work toward, which is one of the more acceptable ways of doing level scaling. Take down more rifts, interact with this glowing satchel of explosives, and it starts a quest. So inanimate objects can start quests too, not just the quest givers. Okay, and finishing those quests shows me the treasure alert symbol, this little silver cross thing to the top right. This is basically the you've finished a quest but there's no one to talk to, so click here for the reward symbol. I now do something that I've not done in an MMO for a very, very long time. I stop writing and just play.
Your inventory
You
is
see,
full.
when you're well
You
versed
can't
in
hold
something,
anymore.
be that filmmaking or music or sports, you often spend more time analysing how something works and watching the little micro movements than you actually do spend enjoying the thing. But Rift does something weird. It does something not many MMOs do. It did nothing wrong for a long amount of time. When I play most bad MMOs, I spot bad things every few minutes. If it's Fiesta, every few seconds, but I must have played for about an hour and a half and not written anything down. The fonts on the screen are all the same family and well-sized, from combat damage floating numbers to speech to the user interface text, and the UI itself is well-sized and well-scaled, with consistent outer edges and clean background colours. The ambient music matches the area, the sound effects of combat and running and enemy attacks are all great. It's not only not bad, it's quite good. The very first annoyance that I even write down is how I can't seem to buy multiple potions in the shop.
You defeated the
buy
powerful
for each
thank
one.
you
At the
against
bottom
me.
left, I can see there's also an activity
Good morning,
finder,
Fred.
which includes the dungeon finder, but I'm too low level for that right now. I do want to try a dungeon or raid before I stop playing, so I just keep questing to level up. I'm still trying to put together the words to explain the strange sensation of playing this, but while I do, let's go and read some reviews and see if anyone else feels the same way. What's the general consensus? Played this game since it first came out long ago, but ever since Trion was bought by Gamergo, the IP has hit the dirt. No more expansion packs in the work, game locked even more behind a paywall than it was when Trion ran the show.
You have our
It's just a
thanks,
sad,
yes.
sad thing.
The
Really
way to
sucks when these
Sparta.
companies buy out these studios. The game on rails and just tries to suck money out of people. My favourite features of the game are the versatility of classes, talent trees, the wardrobes and dyes, and dimensions. Rift has always
leading on
provided
Flux
a
Home
unique
first,
playstyle
the Satyrs
compared to
left.
most MMORPGs out there. There are features such as AoE looting, wardrobes and dyes, which came first from Rift, but are now in other MMORPGs. I'm sad that there are no plans for the future. Sorry people, a decade too late. Rift was an amazing game, managed poorly by a greedy developer who made it free to play to chase bigger numbers while the game was doing fine. RIP Rift, you were amazing, 2010 to 2014. And despite Rift being what many would consider dead, the Steam reviews are actually mostly positive, both recently and overall. That's just made it even more confusing. Now, beyond all the reviews, if you're interested in a more in-depth look at the history of Rift instead of how the gameplay is now, check out Death of a Game, Rift. I'll link it below. Oh, there's water. Let's see how the game handles this. It's fine. Water graphics are nice, motion's good, buoyancy feels right, even the treading water animation looks good. They've animated the wrists moving back and forward which is correct. This quest now needs me to get some items, and the game shows me the quest item log, held on the quest journal screen, a place where all quest items go so don't fill up the main inventory, which is a great system. I mess around with the soul tree for a bit, then decide I don't really know what I'm doing with this yet, so I just do the recommended build. The game has a beginner path to follow. Oh cool, there's cape physics. Your cape billows as you jump. Wonder what happens if you run backward and jump. Of course, it glitches through your body. I guess we can't have everything, can we? Now we're at a pirate refuge with a fishing quest, which is cast your line, then right-click twice when there's a bite. And thankfully it doesn't take too long for each fish. There's even a nice little bit of platforming to get to the right part of the refuge to fish at. Then I jump in and there's underwater combat, with appropriate underwater combat sounds and visual filters. And this enemy drops an item that starts a quest. So far, Rift is impressing me quite a lot. Wonder why it didn't do too well. Don't worry, I'll explain that later. I kill a load more stuff, hand in some quests, then return to the main story plot and stand in this energy beam for a bit, which gives me a nice 1 hour pass. I do some more quests and some more rifts, and honestly the core gameplay loop is solid. Combat is fine, quests are fine, and I've used that word a lot. Fine. This is the problem. It's become clear to me now. You see, 2011 was an interesting year for the MMORPG genre, giving us Star Wars The Old Republic, Terra, DC Universe Online, with Guild Wars 2 The Secret World and Blade and Soul only 1 year away. 2011 was a year in an awkward place. Not only did Rift have huge competition from other releases in the same year, it had heavy competition just round the corner. In 2011 had to either be a breakout success or be doomed to fade away under the shadow of Guild Wars 2. There simply weren't enough players to support every game succeeding. And with the beautiful graphics and smooth action combat of Terra and the massive might of Star Wars behind the Old Republic, Rift, a new IP from a relatively new company, was always going to struggle. Then Rift's fate was sealed when it was sold to Gamergo years later, but more on that later in the video. Finally, in-game, I hit level 10, and this just opens up a load of stuff. First, I get a free gift from the shop. This is just a sneaky way of making me open the shop interface. They could have put this right into my inventory, but no, I have to open the shop, and I have to click redeem, because we can't have that shop going unseen, can we? But what I'm most interested in now is this instant adventure finder. If you want to go grouped up with other people of your level on the same map and do overworld quests, you can use the instant adventure finder, and it sends you immediately to that group, and then you start playing. It doesn't care about plot or consistency or relation to where you are in the story. It's just, here's a group quest, off you go. But if overworld stuff is getting dull, you've also got Intrepid Adventures, which puts you into one of Rift's raids, effectively instantly. See, raids are always constantly flowing, and if there's a spot, you get put in no matter how far through the raid the group actually is. So I do this for a while, and this system is both a blessing and a curse. Personally, I find raids remarkably fun. I think they're an awesome part
human
of most
face.
MMOs, and most
These
games
creatures,
are
I
excited
am
for you
Tellus.
to get there, and gamers are excited to share them with you. But the anticipation of something, the build-up to it, is also part of the experience. And by slowly learning techniques and abilities as you get closer to the raid, you can guarantee then that every player in the raid will have a high level of skill, so you can make the raid complicated. It's like this: if you have played a game for months and they release a new bit and you play it, you'll appreciate it because you have months of knowledge to draw on, and you can say, oh, I can use my skills from here to do this. But if you went to a friend's house and you played on their character, on their favourite MMO that you've got no experience with, no background, you're not invested, and they may say, isn't this raid awesome? And, well, you've not got much to go off to answer that question. You can say how it looks or sounds or how the surface mechanics seem, but you've got no time invested into the game and no emotional connection to any of the characters in it, so the raid to you has no emotional impact. You don't know who you're killing or saving or why. That's exactly how I feel here. It's great that I can be leveled up to 65 and thrown into a massive 20-man raid, with the raid scaling to our team size. It's great that I can experience mechanics and bigger fights and bosses and team quests, but that's all it is. It's a large-scale fight, a big enemy, and a click fest. I don't have any emotional attachment to my character or the world or who I'm fighting, and because I don't know why I'm here, the experience feels hollow. The raids in Rift seem to work as a series of sections of smaller maps, and when you finish a map, it asks if you want to immediately teleport to the next. The game is so eager to get you to the next set piece, it doesn't want you walking. It would find that too slow. That would kill the pacing in its own right. It just says, well done, next bit. There's probably a story here. And here's the vital component. I'm not in it. As an MMO player, I don't expect to always be the chosen one, even though I specifically am here. But I at least expect to be involved or important in some way. And I have no idea why I'm here. I can objectively say the gameplay is good, but emotionally, this is void. The game is tripping over itself to show me its cool fights, and like a film with no plot, it's forgotten that set pieces don't bring the audience into the world. I'm also gaining so many levels in this raid. The experience from every enemy kill is shared, and I'm just power leveling here, even if I didn't want to. The voice acting, however, does have a very specific sense of humour. It's quite dry, and I find it very entertaining. Let's just have a listen to some of the better voice clips.
You have intruded upon the domain of the Lord of Nightmares. I will destroy you and your labyrinth. At first I thought I was born of the various necromancy-fueled apocalypses you suffered through. That's why I've always had such good relations with ghouls and ghosts and other spirits. Plus, they always reminded me of your dead mountain corpse, which makes me smile. You'll never guess what leg these eggs are set there. It has more legs and eyes than you are comfortable with. No, it's not spiders. It's what spiders are afraid of. Then set their webs on fire, never to return for fear of glimpsing it again. Make the Ascended pay for having it better than you.
Cosmic vessels fighting in the formless chaos is not quite as empty as the name would imply. There are eddies that must be navigated, flotsam of realities long gone, and pockets of proto-universes. Also bees.
And bees. That's very much Rift's sense of humour. Something epic juxtaposed with something not. Very tongue-in-cheek. I do more of the raid, I play through, and again, the humour perks up in the voiceovers.
Perhaps I need to change up my Rise from the sewers, my new minions! Touch the Ascendant's face with your filthy pseudopods! You kiss your mother with that mouth? Disgusting.
So far, Rift isn't bad. In fact, in several elements, it's very good. The UI is fantastic, the small graphical flourishes are a nice sign of above and beyond detail, the skill system is vast and varied, the combat mechanics seem really solid, even in a raid. I've had no lag at all so far, and every player seems to be important. The scaling has balanced nicely, it feels that I am helping, but not overpowered. Even the story is suitably epic, even though I don't feel personally connected to it. Fighting through a dream realm to free the goddess avatar of justice from a waking nightmare. I'd probably enjoy it even more if it worked up to it instead of being thrust on me, but that's a consequence of allowing players to join a raid without working up to it. It is the con that comes with the easy-to-join raid pro. Rift, as it is now, feels like a Michael Bay movie. It's flashy to look at, but I don't feel invested. I don't feel involved. Yes, it's impressive, but there's not much going on under the emotional surface yet. This is a long-ass raid, too. I've been here 90 minutes, and we finally get the final boss. I was kind of expecting something else, too. I mean, this dude looks cool. He's definitely huge, but he's standing up tall, and we're on this platform, so everyone is just attacking his crotch. We basically fought through a nightmare zone of unimaginable chaos just so we can wail on this guy's rocky balls. The fight itself is flashy. There's ads and lasers and damage zones and mechanics, but still, Demon Crotch wasn't the boss I was expecting. Oh, by the way, by the end of the raid, I'm level 30. I was 10 when we began. And we kill the final boss, and guess what happens? The raid just restarts from the beginning. No setup, no story, just boom, back at the start, same group, go again. I lead this group because honestly, after a 90-minute teleporting set-piece to set-piece roller coaster of a raid, I need a break. This whole thing was a rush. It was non-stop. There are no down moments in a Rift raid. It's always doing something from start to finish, and that might sound good, but it's actually an issue of pacing. The highs only seem high if you've got the lows to contrast with. But after all that excitement, returning to the main game, the main
I don't know when the
just
rumors.
feels
It's
so
madness.
dull. I just freed an avatar from a nightmare dimension and now I'm back to killing cultists. No! I've tasted raid content. I can't go back to this dull overworld questing. I find an NPC healer and pay off my death debt. The cost is trivial since I've made so much from the raid, and I try to follow the story quest for as long as I can. Let's just have a glance at the cash shop, shall we? A level boost to 65. Not the top level, but close. Costs 6,000 of these gem things. How much would that cost me? Wow, 30 quid. 30 quid to skip the leveling process, which honestly doesn't seem to take that long with raids, although people have told me it slows down around 50. Oh, there's also a patron system where you can become a member for £10 a month, and then you get bonuses in the shop and stuff becomes cheaper too. I also have a patron system, but that is only from £1 a month. Yeah, seamless play. Oh, the cash shop, however, does let you buy what looks like very good equipment. I mean, look at the stats on this Celestial Slayer Warblade. I don't know if that's considered the best, but it's better than what I've got. So while I can't say this is definitely paid to win, it's definitely paid for an advantage. Back to basic quest, kill some mystics, burn some barricades, make some progress, and finally manage to put into words what makes Rift so odd. Rift isn't bad. It's not objectively bad at all. It's well made with solid systems and a fun gameplay loop. Nice graphics, great sound, freeform class building and easy access to raids, but it's not world class either. The best way I can describe Rift is this. Imagine you're flicking through the TV channels because it's 1999 and people still did that, and you start watching an action halfway through. You're not quite sure of the plot and the acting is passable, but you enjoy what you see. You likely won't remember it in the future, but your time watching it was enjoyable enough. That's Rift. If you've ever been walking around the shopping centre and heard some really good music playing in a shop somewhere, good enough that you stop and go, this music's really good, but not good enough that you actually go and find out what it was, that's Rift. If you've ever visited somewhere that's lovely and you had a great time and you'd like to go back again, but you're not actually bothered about actively making plans to go back again because it was good but it wasn't that good, that's Rift. Rift feels very safe. It wants to make sure the player has what they need. It does everything quite well. The equipment system is quite good. The graphics are quite good. The sound is quite good. It's the absolute epitome of quite good. And in the gaming world, that gets you noticed just long enough for something else to come along.
Traveler,
better.
please, without this medicine.
Slightly above average cheesecake. It's the nicer bread at the baker's. It's just above average quality clothing. It's good. But it's not so good that you'll go out of your way to get it. I do more quests while I think of more ways to describe Rift, because honestly, I don't need to critique the mechanics or the design because they are solid. Rift's problem isn't a design one. It's an emotional one. Have you ever had a hobby you really enjoyed, but then one day you stopped and you just have no interest in returning? Talk about it fondly, you've just not got any burning desire to pick it up again. That's how Rift feels to play. It's not great, it's not fantastic, it's just an acceptable MMO released in a year when many acceptable MMOs released and a year before Guild Wars 2 released. I get a free mount from this gift box. It's a cool mechanical looking horse, but honestly I'm more interested in doing more raids. There's a theory in game design that if everyone likes your game but no one loves it, games need dedicated fanatical fans to survive. And while Rift clearly has those, it just didn't create enough of them. Its release on Steam helped, but as is the problem with many MMOs, Rift slowly died. See, MMOs face a very paradoxical survival test. If no one plays your game will die, and no one wants to play a dying game. So the moment someone is playing a game, people leave because they think it will die. Ironically, this causes the game to die. Saying this game is dead can cause a self-fulfilling prophecy where people leave because they believe other people are leaving. Rift had to compete with Star Wars, Terra, and Guild Wars 2, and any hint of failure would have caused people to abandon ship. which is unfortunately likely what happened. The locations in this raid, by the way, are fantastic. This crystal chamber has a 3D rendered ceiling. Stunning. That's another strength. A lot of things exist in this game, especially graphics, I've noticed so far, that don't need to exist. That ceiling doesn't need to be detailed. All of the players are going to look up at any length of time. They did it anyway. The original design team here were really good, so I have a sneaky suspicion it's a combination of bad marketing and bad business decisions that killed this game, not design choices. If you like the raids in World of Warcraft but you don't want to pay a monthly sub, Rift is a decent substitute. The bosses have mechanics, are well voice acted, there's a sizable community remaining. I mean, it found me a raid twice within seconds as a DPS. Clearly there are people playing, but even within that raid, people come, people go, the raid continues. There's no connection to my team here. I don't feel this is our victory, it's just a victory. I don't know who's tanking or healing. I don't know who's doing damage with it. The names on the left keep changing so frequently I can't get attached to any one of them. This raid group feels more like a writhing mass, an evolving blob I happen to be in temporarily, instead of a defined team that I'm an important part of from the start to the finish. Every single map in the raid follows the same pattern too. It's quite paint by numbers. Enter a new area, kill X amount of enemies, pick up X amount of things, interact with X amount of objects, kill a bigger enemy and then move on. Lather, rinse, repeat. It's the same song and dance in every lovely looking area. In this zone, for example, click and interact with 20 corruptions on the floor, then kill 20 enemies. Now pick up 52 books, that's as a raid, not individually. This design isn't really gameplay, because there's no time limit, so no penalty for failure.
Until
it's
next
a case
time.
of success given enough
Thank
time.
you again.
It's
Please,
just
bring
content
word
to fill
to
space. This scenery, again, steals the show. This looks like something out of Alien. I feel like I'm on the Nostromo. But again, the gameplay loop is kill stuff, then pick
Forgot
up stuff,
something?
then bomb stuff, then talk to some pillars, then go and kill some more stuff, then teleport away. I don't know where I am in relation to the world. I feel so
We shall see you
temporal,
again, I
so
hope.
transparent. Part of me feels Rift is a dream, and I'll wake up and remember playing it, but it never existed. Rift is the little MMO that couldn't. It's the MMO equivalent of making an MMO character with perfectly balanced everything. You can kinda tank, kinda heal, and kinda DPS, but not
I
do
know it's
any of
dangerous.
them
It was
world
dark.
class. So
The monster seized my mouth.
the poster child for good enough to be fun, but not great enough to succeed. Oh, these objects you need to interact with in raid maps, by the way, they reset quite quickly, so sometimes the best thing to do is just wait, buy one for reset and sparkle so you can click it again. It's boring but effective. We kill the raid boss, then the raid restarts. So I ask in chat, is this the start? And I get the perfect response back. Some guy just says, dunno. I leave the raid. Dunno. Another player is with me just going through the motions, killing the enemies, collecting loot, never asking why, just clicking buttons and watching flashing lights and feeling no real connection because Rift hasn't made us feel a connection. I have a chat in the general chat and I talk to some more experienced players. I ask, why Rift? What is this you have that others don't? And Zaloon responds with, I don't know, I've not played enough MMOs to answer that. So I can tell you what Rift has based on that answer. It has very well-adjusted, mature players who are confident enough to admit when they don't know something, which is goddamn rare. We chat some more. Another player called Lewis adds he likes the unlimited
necklace!
skill point
I
system.
wonder.
Freedom
My
of
daughter
skill
will have her
now,
down.
allowing two similar classes to actually play very differently, which I can completely agree with. I then ask, why did Rift succeed? And everyone again answers saying how they're not able to answer that because it's complex, and yeah, they're right. Lewis mentions how Tryon used a difficult engine, and the Steam release helped but wasn't enough, and again, he's right. So let me try and summarise the issues with Rift. Rift is made in the Gamebryo engine, same as MapleStory 2, Defiance, Fallout New Vegas, and Wizard 101, and while it's a decent, versatile engine shown by those games, it's difficult to get the best from, so Tryon was setting themselves a difficult task from the start, but in their defence, they did a damn good job. They made a solid MMO with a decent gameplay loop and above-average features all the time, graphically, sound, and combat-wise. With so many other large-scale and well-funded MMOs released so close to it, Rift was swapped, so player count went down because people thought player count would go down, a harsh paradox of MMO player bases. Then Rift was sold to GamerGo, and GamerGo don't care about developing games, only keeping them on life support while bringing in Drive, fleecing every penny from every player. So Rift was hung out to dry with all the other important stuff, Lions, Trove, and Arcade. Forever now doomed to be milked as a cash cow on life support until it dies, because GamerGo will make more money doing that than they will supporting and building it up. Rift was not a bad game, and despite GamerGo getting their grubby claws into it, it still isn't a bad game. But it's not a great game, and that is ultimately what led to it being forgotten within the annals of history. From a full physical CD release to being eclipsed by bigger titles and now fading away and milked dry. Rift is the song you liked as a kid but can't quite remember. It's the film you watched as a teenager but can't quite recall, save for one or two scenes. It's a forgotten game that was and still is good, but it won't ever be good enough. So Rift is more than competent as a game, but it got crushed because other better funded, more popular games happened to be released at the same time. It's not a mechanical failure, it's an emotional one. To show you how forgettable Rift is, what was the bad guy's name? I said it at the start of the video. Can you remember? No. Exactly. Rift isn't bad. It's just not good enough compared to others that released around the same time. So to end the review, I award Rift Regulos.
The Spartan army.
Cheers
Yes.
for watching. If you want more worst MMO ever videos, then drop a like or sub to the channel. And a massive thank you to
Almost everyone at College Humor lost their jobs today. That was the title of a news article published in January 2020 after College Humor reduced its staff from around 100 people to less than 10. The need to lay off a whopping 90% of their workforce had come about because of financial troubles. The channel wasn't profitable. College Humor had suffered from multiple changes in monetization rules. Many of their spin-off products were launched with varying levels of success, all while their general viewership had declined from beyond 100 million per month to around 15 million per month recently. Similar to Smosh as covered previously, College Humor actually began as a separate website in 1999. However, while Smosh saw little success on their website prior to making videos, College Humor was the opposite. In the 6 years between 2000 and 2006, the College Humor website saw massive success by posting content which was, quote, dedicated to the goofy things that college kids find funny. The fact that College Humor's audience were college kids meant that a lot of the content and humor posted was slightly controversial, edgy, and offensive. There was a section for funny drunk college photos, offensive signs, and sexualized images, in conjunction with a message on the homepage from October 2000 which read, "Attention parents and people over 32. Necessary warning. We've had several complaints from parents and older people who are offended after looking at this site. Please note that the name is College Humor and not Parent Humor. You will be offended if you explore this site anymore, so please do not proceed. Also, if you're younger than 18, some of this stuff may not be appropriate. We understand that by saying this, we're drawing more under 18 kids into the site, but oh well. Oh, and don't try stuff you see on here at home. Thanks." This message gives us a pretty good insight into the image that College Humor was going for. It seemed as though they almost wanted to rustle some jimmies in order to show their users that they were going to push boundaries, and it worked extremely well.
Our third month, we got a check for $8,000 for really, minimal traffic. And I remember that was sort of like the moment where I realized this is actually like a real thing.
By the mid-2000s, College Humor's Google Trend Graph was clearly showing the site's popularity, which, luckily for College Humor, drew the eyes of another large corporation, offering this comedy website the opportunity of a lifetime. $20 million. That's how much the two founders of College Humor reportedly received in exchange for a 51% stake in the company. This meant that all of a sudden, College Humor had a bigger budget to work with, as well as the ability to pursue new and novel projects. College Humor had been creating original videos and posting them to the College Humor website dating all the way back to 2005, about a year before the acquisition of see. However, at the time, the videos were pretty basic and had a limited reach considering they were only accessible to those who happened to visit the College Humor website. Their newly found corporate funding in conjunction with fresh leadership changed all of this. Suddenly they had the budget and manpower to include multiple actors in their videos, which featured professional camera work and professional editing, all of which being uploaded to their newly launched YouTube channel called College Humor TV, or CHTV, under the control of their new president of original content, Sam Reich. A large portion of this new content being produced on YouTube continued on with their website's edgy, slightly offensive branding. Osama Night Live, Unsafe Sex, a series titled The Blocksuckers, with one of the College Humor founders stating, "We remain edgy and keep a sensibility that college kids can relate to." It took them a while to figure out what would and wouldn't work here on the YouTube platform. For example, by 2007, over a year after beginning the channel, the group had gained only a touch over 8,000 subscribers, on top of a video queue that didn't exactly stand out as overly enticing. However, by 2009, this had changed dramatically. Their entire team had been plastered on their front page, showing everyone that they meant business. And if you scroll down a little bit to the video section, not only did their thumbnail show that the channel had access to professional animators, but they also often displayed a large cast nestled within professional video sets. From a competition standpoint, College Humor's corporate media backing and access to a huge team of professionals simply put them miles ahead of every other channel at a time when most featured little more than one person talking into a webcam. This would then reflect in their subscriber count. In the 10 months between February 2009 and December 2009, the channel's subscriber count skyrocketed from 150,000 to over 500,000, placing them in the position of YouTube's 16th most subscribed channel. 6 months later, the channel was at 1 million. And by 2014, College Humor had been ranked as New York's 76th most of all time. The backbone of this growth was not only the professionally produced skits, as previously mentioned, but also the incredibly likable, relatable characters in the videos. Jake and Amir, who were two of the most popular characters on the channel, hosted a series in which Jake would play a logical, rational, calculated office worker, having to deal with this irrational, annoying, odd co-worker, Amir. The two would eventually release over 600 episodes of Jake and Amir between 2007 and 2015, at which point they would discontinue the series and leave College Humor altogether, with the goal of working on their own channel and podcast. However, Jake and Amir weren't the only characters to have left College Humor, as highlighted by somewhat of a viral Reddit post in early 2017. What happened to College Humor? They used to be so much better. Like, I know they had at least 15 actors, animation, so much better skits, and it seems as if they had a lot more money. Now there are only 5-ish actors and nothing near as good quality. The 8,000 plus upvotes and 700 comments on the post showed that many shared a similar opinion. Jake and Amir left, simple as. And on a similar vein, I think a lot of their top talent moved on to bigger and better things. Instead of leveraging that alumni network and doing better, it seems they decided to take on the BuzzFeed model of business, and so they suck now. The comment relating to College Humor taking on BuzzFeed's business model was partially true. College Humor didn't have a super strong political flavor in the same way that BuzzFeed did. There was certainly a slight political bias with many videos criticizing America's president. However, most of these videos were pretty mild, done in the name of comedy, and didn't give you the idea that they were trying to have an impact on the next election in the same way that BuzzFeed did. The other thing that set College Humor apart from BuzzFeed was that College Humor kept their content somewhat crude and offensive. Even after the Adpocalypse in 2016, College Humor kept the uncensored swearing and edgy topics alive, which the audience respected as it's simply less common, and it shows that you're willing to take a risk in order to keep the content authentic. However, in the case of College Humor, it may not have been a risk worth taking, as in 2018 they would reveal that it was severely hurting the channel's profits. It came in a video titled How the Internet is Ruining Comedy, posted on the 27th of September 2018, in which the College Humor director Sam Reich would state,
"Making internet videos is challenging, mostly because it pays Dick, and Dick doesn't pay for internet videos."
The College Humor channel was still performing quite well at this point, gaining around 80 million views a month. However, each video was only, on average, between 3 and 6 minutes in length, which may not have been bringing in enough money to cover the wages of over 100
Normally you'd be
Later in that same video, College Humor would add that,
Nowadays, many of our YouTube videos are deemed controversial and don't make any money.
showing that on top of the videos already being short, many of them weren't being monetized. For this reason, College Humor would launch a third-party subscription website called Dropout, on which they could post all their uncensored content for free, marketing it as...
It's like Netflix, but worse and cheaper.
Now, it's incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to find data on how popular Dropout TV was or is, but it didn't seem like it was a failure. There were comments on the introductory video over 2 years after Dropout's release stating, "I have been subbed for the site since this video was released, and I haven't regretted it once. I really love these guys. Dropout is so worth it. There is so much to explore and deep dive, and I want to support everyone at College Humor and keep them going and creating. Best purchase I have made in ages. Honestly, Dropout is so worth it. It's cheap and I have 2 hours of my favorite comedy shows." It seemed as though Dropout TV was helping College Humor get to a position of profitability. However, such a goal was going to be much harder to achieve after the date of January 8th, 2020. College Humor's parent company pulled its funding, laying off more than 100 employees and leaving a long-time executive to run the company on his own. The title to that article summed up the situation perfectly. The parent company of College Humor, IAC, had pulled its funding from the channel, resulting in the layoff of 90% of its staff. College Humor's director, Sam Reich, would announce the news to his Twitter in a tweet stating, "IAC, our parent company, has made the difficult decision to no longer finance us. Today, 100 plus brilliant people lost their jobs, some of whom are my dear friends. The twist, however, is that IAC has agreed to let me run the company myself. In words that I'm sure are as surreal to read as they are to type, I will soon become the new majority owner of CH Media. Of course, I can't keep it going like you're used to. While we were on the way to becoming profitable, we were nonetheless losing money, and I myself have no money to be able to lose." The gamer from Mars made a very strong argument in relation to this last tweet in his video discussing the College Humor layoffs.
With over 20 years to start making money, how much longer did the team expect for financial backers to invest in this content before they'd be justified in cutting their losses?
It's a very good point. If the website began in 1999, was funded by IAC in 2006, and was still unprofitable by 2020, 14 years later, IAC were probably getting pretty sick of waiting around for the project to take off. The gamer from Mars then goes on to state another thing. Their lack of profitability would likely be acceptable if the business was growing, yet all signs showed that things were actually going in the opposite direction. Their Google search volume was down tremendously alongside their YouTube viewership, which had also taken a dive since the early days of the channel. After 14 years without profitability in a business that was seemingly headed in a negative direction, it's hardly surprising to hear that IAC eventually decided to pull the plug. However, things certainly weren't over, and unexpectedly, the removal of IAC's funding might have actually been a blessing in disguise. In the 12 months prior to IAC pulling its funding, working with its full team of 100 employees, the channel gained a total of 457.6 million views, equivalent to 38 million per month. However, in the 12 months after IAC pulled funding, with a smaller budget and a team of between only 5 and 10 people, the channel gained a total of 468.2 million views, equivalent to 39 million per month, meaning that there was really no change in viewership after College Humor's 90% staff layoff. You'd think that it would be chaos, disorder, complete and utter pandemonium following the loss of 90% of your workforce. However, perhaps it made things more simple, streamlining the content creation process while getting rid of people who seemed important, yet might have just been holding things up or adding insignificant changes without anyone realizing. When looking at the content itself, it didn't seem like much changed after their funding was pulled. Sam Reich stated that some of their projects will need to take on bold new creative directions in order to survive. Also, as previously mentioned, I can't keep it going like I used to. Yet, when comparing the content to before then after the removal of their funding, there's seemingly very little difference. So perhaps they were simply able to keep up the same level of quality, only with fewer people. Well, for some time. Their 39 million average monthly views throughout 2020 has since declined to around 15 million per month, which began after a radical content shift approximately 6 months ago. College Humor uploaded a video titled No Laugh Newsroom, in which characters have to read a hilarious script and whoever laughs the most loses. Prior to this video, the content uploaded to the channel was fairly diverse, covering a bunch of different topics. However, in the last 6 months, College Humor has uploaded nothing but No Laugh Newsroom videos. While these are fairly hilarious, the graph seems to show that the lack of novelty is hurting the channel's overall viewership. Yet, it's hard to call College Humor a failure. They are still getting pretty reasonable views given the size of their channel and team, and it's not like they made a bunch of clear and predictable mistakes in the same way that BuzzFeed did. They're just a channel that kind of ran their course. For most businesses, to lose 90% of your staff as well as your parent company funding would mean certain death. Yet College Humor is still out there giving it everything they've got, certainly a commendable trait.
Take a listen to this.
Year 7, day 109.
What you just heard were some new files that were added into Dead by Daylight that potentially could reveal what the next chapter is going to be for the anniversary. Welcome back to Theory Time. I am your host, The King, and we got some spicy information for you guys. As you guys heard in the beginning of the videos,
Year 7, day 189. Postscript.
James Rich. Journal of a moving picture. Of dreams and madness.
Morning.
new files were added into Dead by Daylight, these being pretty much unused narrator sounds, and we can hear a different voice from the Observer, one that we haven't heard before. So does this have any correlation to what's to come in the anniversary chapter? Well, that's where the theory begins. If you haven't noticed, on the PTB, if you head over to the archive section, you can see that the Observer's room is completely in shambles. We see that there's no Observer as well, and there's even footprints around as if someone broke in and there was a big fight going on. So this left a lot of people curious on where exactly did the Observer go to. Is this a clue leading to the potential of the next chapter? And what does it all mean if it's not? Well, based on some of the cutscenes that we've seen with the Observer, we know that he's constantly being hunted by a bunch of different things, and the entity is trying to get him out of the realm and his safe space. And it seems that the entity might have finally had the upper hand, with someone actually going in and getting rid of him, essentially. Now, we don't know if he's still alive or if he's still around, as he's not in the room itself. But according to these new files and these new audios, it seems that there's a new narrator reading everything, so one can assume that the new narrator will take the place of the Observer. And that then sets up the potential. Is this the new killer that is speaking? Is this the new survivor Hattie potentially that is speaking? We don't really know. Nonetheless, this is all pretty interesting and does lead to some good theories. Now, this could be a red herring, and this could have just been something that the developers decided to test and they just left in there all nonchalantly, but typically that's never really the case. We don't really see files that are in there that aren't really used. Everything kind of has a purpose. So potentially this could either be the new Observer who is talking, which could be the new survivor Hattie. Now, if you don't know who I'm talking about and who Hattie Kuar is, she is the survivor that is speculated to come out with the brand new anniversary chapter. According to data miners and DVD News, it is saying that the new survivor is going to be an original one, being Hattie Kuar. We don't know if this is true or not, but this is the biggest lead that we have thus far, so take it with a grain of salt. Assuming that this is indeed real, Hattie is seen in various different tome entries as a psychic investigator who has her own Hell web series where she investigates a bunch of paranormal phenomenon and historical tragedies. She works very hard to expose the Black Veil, who we know have a major part in Dead by Daylight's lore. And in case you don't know who the Black Veil is, they're basically a cult that is devoted to the entity itself, sacrificing many people, and even have ties to Elodie, Carmina or the artist, and even the twins. It's believed that the origin of the Black Veil itself was the religion that was led by the Plague, so there's a lot that is currently going on. Regardless, I digress. Hattie is trying to expose the Black Veil across various realities, and she's alongside her stepbrother and produced with her step-uncle with a mysterious benefactor. And we do also need to note that she has the ability to see what others cannot and view that overlaps between different realities as well as the events in the past. So Hattie actually has a little bit of psychic powers. So this could make sense if she were to come in as a new survivor, that she could potentially become the new Observer. Maybe she knows who the Observer truly is and she needed to get rid of him. Or maybe she knew that the power that the Observer presented, as he can see in the past just like her. So this role kind of fits in perfect if this were to happen. Now, moving on a little bit more, I want to talk about something that was in the actual files itself. The 6-year anniversary was revealed, the logo essentially. Now this one is quite interesting. Every single year there is a little correlation that goes on with the way they design it. For example, with the Dead by Daylight 4th year anniversary, the 4 was very similar to Pyramid Head. In the 5th year anniversary, it was very similar to the Hook on Resident Evil. That one's a little bit more of a stretch to the daughters. having the hook weapons, but it was something that people correlated nonetheless. So if we are speculating and we are continuing, what exactly does this 6 mean? A lot of people are saying that this could be a spider or a claw that represents the entity, some going as far as saying that this could be Candyman. I don't think that this character is going to be licensed. I really do believe that they're going to be original. So I'm going to have to back the spider or vampire or whatever type of theory and assume that their weapon could be a hook or this has something to do with the entity. But what I want to take more focus on is the actual skull that we're seeing on the left. Every single year this changes, but we notice something a little bit interesting with this year's. It's not exactly gold like previous years, it's more entity burnt, but we see a lot of blue on it. Now shout out to Myers, he was actually the one that showed me all of this and even giving me the files for the audio, but he pointed out that Michaela and her blue totems are blue. They're a blessing, it's her unique little ability, and blue basically signifies good. We know that Hattie also has some psychic powers in her. She is able to see the past, etc. And if blue is this constant representation of something that is good and helps the survivors, could this potentially mean that Hattie entering this world, taking the new position as the brand new observer, shakes up the entity's realm and she's now gaining some power among the entity? It's a pretty crazy theory, but that's kind of what I'm getting with these images here. And I know it sounds pretty ludicrous. How can we even speculate something based on just an image? But that's what we do here on Theory Time. So if this theory was indeed true, it means that Hattie Kuwar is coming in as the brand new survivor. She will be the brand new observer and she will start narrating things. As to whether she killed the previous observer or got rid of him, we don't really know what went down, and maybe we'll find out. But if this is true, it means she's now in the entity's realm and she's harnessed all the power and she somehow figured out a way to basically give the entity a run for its money. And that, my friends, is the theory on what all of this is. We have the leaked audio files that could potentially mean that Hattie is a new observer, because we know the observer's room has been completely destroyed, and with this banner it can back it up a little bit more. I hope you guys did enjoy this theory. It was a little bit of a stretch putting it all together, but if it does turn out to be true, I'm gonna be pretty excited and I can't wait to see what this actually means. As for the killer, that's for another video. Who the killer is, what their power will be, what can we speculate, we'll save that for next time. But that's gonna do it for me. As always, I'm the king. I tip my crown to you guys, and we'll see you in the fog.
You can't carry anymore.
More chance now.
Your inventory is full.
Rusty Quill presents the Magnus Archives. Episode 14, Piecemeal.
Yes?
Statement of Lee Rentoul on the murder of his associate Paul Noriga. Original statement given May 29th, 2011. Audio recording by Jonathan Sims, head archivist of the Magnus Institute, London. Statement begins.
Goodbye.
Let's get one thing straight right off. This is not a goddamn confession, alright? If you go to the police with this, I will deny every word, and I know enough about the law to know that even if I spill my guts to you about all the horrible things I've done, it will count for nothing in court. It's not like you'll even be able to help me. My mate Hester said he came to you a few years back, been seeing ghosts and that. And you guys looked into it and told him it was some sort of noise messing with his head, infrasound or something, and he's fine now. I need that. I need you to tell me that it's just coincidence and my mind playing tricks, and I need to not lose any more bits of me. So yeah, I killed that asshole Noriga. stabbed him in the throat and left him to bleed out on the dockside. Maybe that shocks you a bit, maybe not, but trust me when I say he had it coming. 8 years we worked together, and it was him that got carried away kicking McMullen's head in and moved it from assault to GBH. But sure enough, when we get picked up, he turns on me and I get pinned for it. 5 years I served because of him, while he walked free as you please. I'd say that I was due a bit of payback, and I certainly got it. It wasn't my first choice, though. I'm not stupid, and parole keeps you on a short enough chain that slitting Noriga's throat was not my top priority. Don't get me wrong, it was something I'd been itching to do for 5 goddamn years, but I wasn't in a rush. I had plenty of time to arrange something nasty for him, and I wanted him hurt more than I felt I had to do the deed myself. So when I got out in June last year, I bided my time and kept my ear to the ground, tried to get in touch with him, but was told by the few friends we had in common that he wasn't interested in talking to me. He'd clearly done okay for himself in the years I'd been away and could afford some muscle to make sure I didn't bother him. I ended up with a couple of bruised ribs when I finally got tired of the runaround and tried to have it out with him properly. It was laying there, some grim side street in Lewisham of all places, that I came to the decision that if I was going to hurt this asshole, and I mean properly hurt him, I was going to have to think outside the box a bit. I decided to pay McMullen a visit. Before Noriga had gone to work on him, Toby McMullen was just some street punk. These days he was just a street punk who had trouble turning his neck. I've met plenty of born losers in my time. I mean, it's kind of a given in this business, but I've never met someone so intent on being a screw-up as McMullen. When I saw him, he was high as a kite and barely knew I was there, but you bet his eyes lit up when I mentioned Paul Noriga. It took hours to get anything useful out of that waste of skin, but eventually I pieced together his side of this sorry tale. Noriga had paid him a visit in the hospital, apparently, before the police had picked us up, and promised that if he fingered me for the assault, then he'd have all of the narcotics his little junky heart could dream of. Only once he was out of hospital and my conviction had gone through, it wasn't 2 days before McMullen was out on his arse again, and Noriga didn't want to know. Any idiot could have seen it would play out that way, but not poor, stupid Toby. Still, he'd been itching to get the knife in for almost as long as I had, and he had had the freedom to plan it. So I asked him if he had anything I could use. I shouldn't have been surprised when he suggested magic. Toby had always been into all of that mystical crap, even before the drugs. And if there was some half-baked New Age fad going round, you could bet you'd find it dribbling out of his mouth whenever he was coherent enough to actually talk.
Your inventory
I punched him
is
in
full.
the gut and turned to leave. He followed me, doubled over and struggling for breath, begging me to help him. He said he was serious, said it wasn't like the other stuff, said he knew someone with real power who could put the hurt to Noriga, but he just didn't have the money. I should have kept walking. I should have shaken him off.
Hello there.
I should have beat him so bad he couldn't turn his neck the other way either. But I didn't. I stopped. And I listened to what that piece of human garbage had to say.
Goodbye.
I was an idiot. So Toby took me to see his friend Angela. He never gave me her second name. I asked him what it was, Wicca, voodoo, some crystal ball, but Toby said no, nothing like that. Said he didn't really know how it was supposed to work, but he had a girl a few months back had told him about Angela. Said she'd used her services on a particularly unpleasant ex-boyfriend. Apparently he'd disappeared, and they never found a body. So then I'm thinking maybe there's no magic there, just a killer with a shtick. But hey, if that was the case, it was fine by me, just as long as Noriga got done. When I finally met Angela, it was all I could do not to cave McMullen's head in. I'd just about convinced myself I was going to be meeting with a hardened killer, maybe one that kept a bunch of spooky Halloween crap around, but still someone who'd get the job done. I wasn't even put off when we pulled up to a well-kept suburban house in Bexley. When the door was answered by an old lady in a lilac dressing gown, I almost lost it. McMullen asked if she was Angela, speaking in a quiet voice like he was actually scared of the geriatric fool. The old woman said yes, she was Angela, and asked us to come in. The house felt almost as old as its owner, faded floral print wallpaper, dark oak furniture, and threadbare carpets. The walls were covered with framed portraits, the sort you get in any cheap antique store or charity shop. Although as we went into the living room, I noticed something I didn't expect. They weren't paintings. They were jigsaw puzzles, each completed and framed. And sure enough, when we sat down on the worn cloth sofa, there in front of Angela was another jigsaw, half finished. I've got no problem with the elderly, and if they want to throw away their last years putting together a damn picture, then I'm sure not going to stop them. But it wasn't exactly going to kill Noriga, was it? I was so angry at this massive waste of my time that when she offered us a cup of coffee, I almost put McMullen face first through the glass table in front of us. I grunted something which Angela apparently took as a yes please, and so a few minutes later there I was drinking instant coffee from a chipped mug that this doddering old ass clearly hadn't thought to wipe the dust off of. When she asked if I wanted Paul Noriga dead, I nearly choked. She asked it very matter-of-factly, like it was a question on some form she knew the answer to but had to fill in anyway. I glanced at Toby, who nodded at me, and I thought, what the hell? I might as well play along. So I said yes. Yes, I did want him dead. And more than that, I wanted him to suffer. Angela smiled when I said that, a warm smile that suited her round face, and said that that wouldn't be a problem. I started to explain the situation, but she waved it away and told me that Toby had filled her in on all the details, and that there was just one thing she needed from me that he couldn't provide. I started to tell her that I wasn't paying for someone's gran to take out a hard case like Noriga, but she said no. She wasn't after money. She said that she was well compensated for the service she provided, and that all she needed from me was an object. Anything that I had taken from Noriga. Not a gift, she said, staring into my eyes with a look that I recognized from years of working with very unpleasant people. It wouldn't work if it was a gift. At this point I was starting to feel uneasy. Not scared, alright? I wasn't scared of this old woman, but being around her was bad. I don't know how else to say it, she was bad. You've got to understand, I know dangerous. I understand dangerous. Hell, I am dangerous. This was something else. But I wanted Paul Noriga dead so badly. 5 years ago, just before we'd been picked up by the police, I'd borrowed his lighter. It was a battered old Zippo, used to have a picture of a topless woman on it, but now that was almost worn away. After he turned on me in questioning, I didn't feel much like returning it to the treacherous backstabber, so I held on to it. I hadn't thought much of it, but here it was, still in the pocket of my jacket all those years later. I handed it to Angela and she gave me that look again and told me that it would work just fine. And then we left. Angela told us not to worry about it, that Paul Noriga wasn't going to be bothering us for much longer. We just had to wait until she was finished. Finished with what exactly she didn't say, she didn't need to. We knew whatever it was, we were probably better off not knowing. The waiting came hard, though. After he'd had me roughed up, it seemed like Noriga had decided I wasn't worth worrying about. I'd see him walking those streets like he owned them, his pair of leg breakers in tow, and I knew there was nothing that I could do about it. He knew it too. So I waited. And I waited. I waited for the shot, or the knife, or the poison, or the whatever would end him for good. It never came. Days turned into weeks, and there he still was, as cocksure as ever. I was patient. God, I was patient. But after 3 weeks, I had almost written off that useless old bag as a time-wasting con job. I was going to give her one more week. Just one. But then something came up that I couldn't ignore. Word came down that Noriga was meeting someone at the docks, some fence by the name of Salesa. The man dealt mainly in stolen art and curios, valuable stuff, and was paranoid as hell, which meant Noriga was going to be there alone. It might have been a trap, sure, but I've been sitting on my ass waiting for him to magically drop dead for so long that if there was even a chance it was on the level, I had to take it. Turns out it was true, and went off smoother than I could have hoped for.
With the village spring tainted.
I found the warehouse a few hours before the meet and staked out a good spot.
From all over.
Then I waited.
used to sell plows.
Salesa turned up first, a big Samoan guy with close-cropped hair, flanked by 4 men in dark suits, who carried a square wooden crate between them. They went into the warehouse and, sure enough, 5 minutes later there he is, that snake. He was alone and seemed to be limping slightly. He headed inside through the same door, leaving it unlocked. Perfect. There was no point me going in yet. I wasn't keen to get my head kicked in by Salesa's goons, so I just watched. My hand gripping the hilt of a combat knife I'd bought at an army surplus store I know is happy to sell off the books. It was almost an hour later that Salesa and his men left, still carrying that box. They didn't look happy, but I could have given a damn. As soon as they were round the corner, I headed inside as quietly as I could. And there he was, leaning up against a pile of bricks, smoking. I started to move towards him, but as I got near, he must have heard me and turned around. He started to say something about reconsidering and lowering the price, and he realized I was not Salesa. Then a look passed over the face of Paul Noriga that I will treasure forever. No matter what happens to me, the memory of that look of panicked terror will stay with me. He turns to run, but whatever was wrong with his leg meant he tripped over the bricks instead. I grabbed him by the collar, my knife already out, and dragged him up. I had always been the stronger of the two of us, and he knew he couldn't fight me. Holding up his hand, he begged me to wait, to listen. I noticed that his hand was missing a couple of fingers, old wounds that had long healed over, though I didn't remember seeing them before. It didn't matter. I could hear the blood pumping in my head, and nothing was going to stop me taking my revenge. He begged for mercy as I plunged the knife into him once, twice, 3 times, again and again and again. I stabbed that backstabber until, finally, I let him fall. He landed on the floor hard, dead weight, his head making a thick, cracking sound as it hit the bricks, and blood began to pool on the floor around his body. The rage started to fade, and my breathing returned to normal. I took a second to look over poor, dead Paul Noriga, and saw something that seemed to have been knocked loose when his head hit the bricks. Picking it up, I saw it was a glass eye. I looked back at the corpse, and sure enough, there was a gaping hole where his left eye should have been. When had that happened? He certainly had both eyes when we had worked together, and all 10 fingers as well. He'd also had all his teeth, where now I saw gaps all over that dead, smiling face. I shivered, though I don't know why. I won't go into detail about how I went about disposing of the body. Just trust me when I say that even if the cops did find any piece in Noriga's corpse, they wouldn't be able to pin it on me. And life went on. His boys did come looking for me when their boss didn't return, but I knew to lay low for a while, and soon enough they realized that if he was gone, they weren't getting paid either way and moved on. And so I had my revenge. And that should have been the end of the story. But it wasn't. It was 5 days after I killed Noriga that I found the first package. I was on Tottenham Marshes, near the reservoir, on business you don't need to know, and I came to a metal bridge over one of the streams there. Now, this wasn't a place I went often, and I don't think I'd ever crossed that bridge before in my life, but there, lying in the center of it, was a small box. It was wrapped in brown paper and string, like an old-fashioned Christmas present, and had my name printed on it in clear letters. Lee Rentoul, for immediate consideration. Obviously, I was a little bit freaked out at this, but not as freaked out as when I opened it. Inside was a black cardboard box, full of cotton wool, and a single severed finger. It was obviously some sort of threat. Some punk reckoned they could put a scare on me. No chance. I threw the finger into one of the canals and set the box on fire before throwing it in a bin. I headed home quickly, keeping my attention all around me and my hand on my knife. I was so busy looking behind me I didn't see the hole in front of me, and I tripped. As I fell forward, I felt a hot pain in the hand that had been on my knife. You guessed it. Falling had caused the blade to slice clean through my little finger. I'm not too proud to admit that I screamed at this. I tore up my shirt trying to make a bandage to stop the bleeding, at least until I could get to a hospital. But as I began to wrap it up, I noticed that it wasn't actually bleeding. The wound was closed. It had healed, like it had happened years ago. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to do. So I just went home. I wasn't getting my finger back, so I figured I could try to deal with it after a decent night's sleep. There was another box at my flat. Same as before. This one contained 2 toes. I tried to ignore it and keep my foot well away from any knives, but I was trying to adjust the settings on my flat screen when it fell off the wall, hit my right foot, and, well, have you figured it out yet? That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I lost 4 more fingers to accidents, most of my toes. This eye I managed to put out on a goddamn fence post. I've lost count of the number of teeth gone, and believe me when I say that you don't want to know how I lost the hand. Each time, a box wrapped in brown paper.
Goodbye, my friend.
Lee Rentoul. For immediate consideration. I've tried everything. Once I thought I managed to outsmart it. Spent the day in my bedroom, nothing sharp, no edges. I'd taken out everything except the mattress. It didn't matter. I woke the next morning with an agony in my foot far sharper than any knife could cut. And the big toe missing, just like the one I'd received the morning before. I knew it was Angela. Of course I did, I'm not thick. Whatever curse she'd laid on Noriga must have passed to me. I went over there, you know. Went to confront that old... And you know what happened? She let me in. She was nice, civil, offered me another cup of coffee. I told her where to stick it. Demanded, asked, begged her to stop whatever was happening to me. You know what she did? She shrugged. She just shrugged. Told me that some hungers are too strong to be denied, whatever the hell that means. So I went for her. I was gonna strangle the life out of that curse-flinging bag of bones. But as I reached for her, I don't know. I don't know what happened. I know that's how I lost the hand. I know I chewed it off. Look, it doesn't matter. I just need your help. I need this to stop. I don't know how, but this is your area, right? This is what you do. You look into this weird ghost crap, right? Well, this is the definition of weird ghost crap, and I need you to help me. I need you to save me from whatever is happening. I don't have much time. I got a box this morning, a few hours before I came here. It was a tongue. Statement ends. It doesn't look like this case was ever properly followed up. According to the supplementary notes, shortly after making his statement, Mr. Rentoul became violent towards Institute staff, and in the ensuing incident there was an accident. No details are given, but apparently it required Mr. Rentoul's hospitalization. I'm reminded of a somewhat tasteless joke about loose tongues. He did not return to the Institute afterwards, and his statement was archived. According to the arrest records Sasha uncovered, Mr. Rentoul was telling the truth about the somewhat checkered past of himself and his associate, Paul Noriga, with extensive files on both of them. The last listed interaction between the police and Mr. Noriga is 2 months before Mr. Rentoul's statement, and since then, no sign can be found of him in police records, or indeed anywhere else. I sent Martin to look into this Angela character.
You can't carry anymore.
Not that I want him to get chopped up, of course, but someone had to. Apparently he spent 3 days looking into every woman named Angela in Bexley over the age of 50. He could not find anyone that matches the admittedly vague description given here, though he informs me that he had some very pleasant chats about jigsaws. Useless ass. Tim has done his best to try and hunt down Mr. Rentoul and see if we can contact him for a follow-up interview or evaluation, but it looks like he disappeared shortly after making this statement. We were able to find his old landlord, though, who said that Mr. Rentoul vanished in early April of 2011, leaving many unpaid bills and no forwarding address. He said that when he had gone to clear out the flat, he'd been surprised to find that there was no furniture left. All that remained, he said, were hundreds and hundreds of small cardboard boxes. Recording ends.
The Magnus Archives is a podcast distributed by rustyquill.com and licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike International license.